Welcome to Tweak Your Default Settings for Legal Work. In this lesson, you'll learn to access and customize Word's interface, fix its programmatical settings, and install your preferred legal formatting as Word's default formatting. When you make Word work for you, you'll harness the power of Word while stripping away basic settings inappropriate for a law office. You'll also avoid annoying notifications, navigate faster, and stop using clunky workarounds. We'll cover features which are available for Microsoft Word for Windows or Mac. Hello, and welcome to Tweak Your Default Settings for Legal Work in Microsoft Word. Today we'll cover spell check settings, default dictionaries, and formatting settings. I'm Ivy Gray from WordRake, and I'm with Baron Henley from Affinity Consulting. Take it away, Baron.
Okay, so just to be clear, I'm going to go over a bunch of stuff. Everything I'm going to be covering as it relates to Word default settings is in the handout if you want to download and go through it. So you don't have to take a lot of notes. There's so many settings that we recommend changing in Word that it takes up like 12 pages of screenshots and explanations. But the approach was, so we've been supporting law firms tech support in Word for 25 years. If enough people complain about something or ask about something, then if we found a way to make that go away and stop bothering them in the default settings, then we added it to our recommended default settings. So it's kind of a crowdsourced document. And some of them are absolutely mandatory that you make these changes. Other of them are totally discretionary. Below, if you download and look at the materials, you'll see I've got screenshots of each thing I suggest you change. Below the screenshot is our little bullet points, which explain why we're suggesting you do it. So please read the bullets so you'll know if this is applicable to you. You might look at it and go, that's not a big deal, or I like that. Some people like what other people don't like, as you might imagine. So it's suggestions, but I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I do want to give you some of the highlights. So to get to these settings, you click the File menu, and then you go down to Options on the bottom left corner. And in this dialog, we will stay. You'll notice the architecture here on the left side, I've got General, then I click on Display, then I click on Proofing and Save. And each one of these screens has lots and lots of checkboxes, which of course are badly explained and there's no help. So like if you see a little thing like this, a little blue thing, you can hover on it and it'll give you a little, here's what this is all about. But you'll notice that hardly any of the checkboxes have the little blue thing. So that's the problem. There's like a few little blue dots and the rest of them, you just got to figure it out. Anyway, starting at the top in general, and this is the way that the manual or the handout will progress. The first page starts here, the next page goes to here, the next page goes to here. Anyway, starting at the top. The first one, for example of something that you may or may not want to uncheck, show many toolbar on selection. This is checked by default. We're suggesting that you uncheck it. And this is one of those things people were complaining about. If this is checked and you select text, you immediately are presented with a little constellation of toolbars, just simply because you selected text. And the toolbars often cover the text you just selected, and now you can't see the text. And that's what was annoying people. So it sounds like, well, the mini toolbar on selection, isn't that a good thing? Well, it depends. If you're irritated by that and you uncheck this, then it will not automatically show you a bunch of toolbars. But if you want to see those toolbars, you can always right-click what you selected. Okay, so that's a good example of that. People just kept complaining about that. So I'm like, well, there's got to be some way to turn this off. And sure enough, there was. Down here at the bottom, show the start screen when this application starts. Most people don't like that. That's turned on by default. And that's why if you, in the new versions of Word and Word 365, which is what I'm showing you here, when you go into Word, you used to get a blank document, like start typing, and now you don't. You get a bunch of templates and stuff. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to see the templates. I just want a blank document. All right, so if you don't want to see that stuff, then uncheck show start screen when this application starts. All right, moving to display. Some people down here update fields before printing. So let's say I had a table of contents, a table of authorities, a cross-reference or more in my document. In order, like people go in and edit the documents, those fields do not automatically update themselves. So if you did a table of contents, table of authorities, cross references, and a whole bunch of other fields, the only fields that automatically update themselves in Word are paragraph numbers and page numbers. So what happens is people forget, they edit the document and they could have updated those fields to be accurate, but they forgot. In order to update your fields, you have to select the whole document and then tap F9 on your keyboard, okay? Maybe you might forget to do that. If you check this box, then whenever you print the PDF or print to a physical printer, it will automatically update all your fields and everything will be correct. So it's just kind of a backstop fail-safe thing that you might want to turn on. Under proofing, okay, here is a absolutely mandatory thing. This is checked by default. And what does this mean? It means that Word is not spell checking things you type in all caps, which of course is super bad for lawyers because there's a lot of things we have to type in all caps. So you would want this. And by the way, these settings are shared with Outlook on this page. So you may have noticed if you're yelling at somebody in all caps in an email and you misspelled something, and it doesn't flag it. And that's because of this. So you would definitely want to uncheck that box so it does in fact spell check everything.
So two of those use cases I just want to point out so that you have in your mind why this would be useful. First, in your court captions, if you are a litigator, that's where you're going to type in all caps most of the time. So you don't want to get the judge's name or your client's name or anyone else's name wrong in those court captions. One of the key things is that you can get a judgment in the wrong name if you've misspelled the name. So you definitely want to get that right. And that's a key use case for this. The other is for provisions that must be considered plain or obvious for consumer-facing documents. Most of the time, lawyers will write those in all caps. It doesn't really matter that it makes them less readable, but that's how they are. And if you have typos in those provisions, then it's going to be incredibly embarrassing and it is avoidable.
Yeah, cognovit provisions in a promissory note, warranty disclaimers. I mean, some things just have to be typed in all caps. Now, you could say, I don't want to see the squiggly lines under things you think are grammatically correct, but I do want to run the grammar check when I run a spell check. That's just personal preference. So, and they have expanded, to their credit, they've expanded considerably the options that you have in terms of what it's flagging and what it's not flagging. But
if you're a WordRake user, you can actually get to those settings from the WordRake ribbon in one click. And we highly recommend that you choose the writing style you would like to use and find the right grammar settings and the right types of things that you do want feedback on, rather than fighting against the things that you don't like. And WordRake will give you higher level grammatical suggestions and ways to refine your writing.
Excellent. Okay, under save, there's actually a couple of important things here. As you may be aware, Word is making backup copies of all the documents you're editing every, by default, 10 minutes. You can see here I've changed mine to 5. So if you've ever had a lockup in Word and you restart Word, and either it simply opens the documents that you were working on at the time of the lockup, or else they show up in a panel on the left side of the screen, that's not as of the second you had a lockup, that's of its last timed backup. So if you want to decrease that, I would not reduce that all the way down to 1 minute, because then your computer's backing up everything every minute and it might bog down your computer. But there's certainly no harm in reducing that to 5 minutes instead of 10. And then down here, save to computer by default. This is not checked by default. And we've had clients accidentally save things into OneDrive unwittingly, thinking they were saving them to wherever they normally save files, and then feel they lost that file because they went to the server and they're like, I just saved this file yesterday and it's not even there. Somebody deleted my file. And we found it in OneDrive because this is not checked by default. Microsoft Word 365 is pre-configured to direct you to OneDrive, and you don't want to be tricked. So you might want to say, yeah, my computer. Go ahead.
I've made that mistake too. So some people will type a document and save it to their desktop while it's a work in progress. And once it's finalized, they'll move it to a shared source on OneDrive. And that would be another reason that you might want to actually save to computer by default. Whereas if you are working on it on OneDrive and saving as you go, then you're actually writing over whatever it was on OneDrive that might have been a shared thing. You can also avoid that problem by using templates properly, but that's another tutorial.
Exactly. Don't show, this is not checked by default. This is another thing I just find, it just adds extra steps when I'm doing simple things like saving. I would recommend that you check, don't show backstage view when opening or saving files with keyboard shortcuts, because nobody needs to see that. And down here, when you go into Word and you hit File Open, it takes you somewhere. And a lot of times it's taking people to the My Documents folder, which is not where they're saving stuff. So if you want to redirect that to a different location, your default file location right here, you can click Browse and you can redirect it to a different spot. One other thing, so see this little checkbox that says, keep the last auto-recovered version if I close without saving. So if you go to the File menu and down to Info, you'll see there's a button here that says Manage Document. If I click on that, it says Recover Unsaved Documents. And I've had people go, what does that even mean? How can it recover things I didn't save? So here's what Word does. You're working on a document, blah, 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 and you close the document, and it's going to say, do you want to save your changes? And if you say don't save, it'll save them anyway, okay? And it saves it as of the last timed backup. So if I go to File, Info, Manage Document, and Recover, it will show me the documents that I recently said no to. Now, we have clients that don't like that, like no means no. And if I say don't save it, then don't save it. So now it doesn't hang on to them forever, and you can come in here and delete the unsaved documents. It puts them in a particular folder. But if that bugs you, then you simply uncheck that little box right there, and it will stop automatically saving things you told it not to save. That's what that checkbox does. Nothing to show under language, and nothing.
I would add to the language.
Okay.
If you are having problems in Word, and say you have an add-in that's not working or your readability scores aren't working, then it's possible that your language is considered something other than English. And if you come back to this language setting and change it to English, then you will fix that problem.
Yeah, and there's a language button under, where is that? Under Design, no, Insert, Home. There's a language button in one of the, here, under Review. So we've gotten this tech support call a million times. I have clear typos in my document, and it's not recognizing them as typos. I'm not getting red squiggly lines under words that are clearly misspelled. And in every case, it has been that the document somehow, Microsoft Word thinks it's in a different language, even though it's clearly in English. And so the way we fixed that was we'd say, select the whole document, go to language, and down to language preferences. No, not language preferences, the first one. Set proofing language. We clicked on English and make sure that these boxes are not checked and click OK. And that's all they had to do. And then suddenly the spell check started working again. And in most of those cases, they're like, I don't even know how it got like that. Well, you got to remember, like, you receive documents from outside your office, and you've got documents in your office that have been in use for years and years and years. Who knows where they came from or what's happened to them in the interim? And sometimes the language gets confused. And if that happens, the telltale sign is you've got a typo, it's not picking up. That's it doesn't matter if it's in all caps or not. It doesn't recognize it as a typo. Okay. Under Advanced, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff in here. You know what? Let me press pause. I'm going to go back to proofing because I failed to talk about something that's super important. This little button right here. Under proofing, you've got autocorrect options. This is the primary cause of annoyance for people using Word, because these are the settings that are doing things you didn't ask it to do. So if I click on this, and the first thing is, let's start with autocorrect. So if you type, let me go back to this. If you type if you open Word and you type C and you hit space, what happens? Okay, here's what didn't happen. I did not get a copyright symbol. Okay, by default, Word would have converted that paren, C paren to a copyright symbol. If I do paren, E paren, it becomes a euro symbol. If I do paren, R paren, it becomes a little registered trademark, whatever that means, symbol. And most people don't like that. Like if I type paren, C paren, that's what I want it to stay. Please don't convert it to a symbol. Those are autocorrect. Now, autocorrect, I misspell achieve, E-I-V-E, it fixes that. You misspell the, it fixes that. If you run words together, he was in the, and I hit space, it automatically adds a space between. So that's autocorrect. There are a bunch of things that come with Word autocorrects that are actually symbol substitutions. If you don't want it to do that, you can delete those. And in addition, let's say I'm a tax lawyer and I have to write Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended all the time. If I slash IRC, you can see how I use it as a text expander. So all of that is under File, Options, Proofing, Autocorrect. So you can see I've made a bunch of just substitutions in here, but you can also delete the ones you don't want. Like if I scroll down to this, if I put in a colon open paren, I get a frown face emoji. I didn't put that in there. Microsoft Word did. If I don't want the little frowny face when I do that, I just click on this and I hit delete. So get rid of the stuff you don't want. And there are some words, like if you're a touch typist, I misspell words that I know how to spell because I'm typing fast and I transpose letters. I consistently misspell certain words. So I've added them to this. So I'm sure I'm still misspelling them, but I don't even know it because it fixes them the second I do it. So
use things that you might want to add would be your firm name, a judge that you're in front of all the time, especially if you can't remember if it's an E or an I, certain client names. And I actually use paren, S paren to insert the section symbol, and it improves my life considerably.
Yes. Another thing that people complain about, like you go to the bottom of the letter and you type CC for copies and it caps the first C because it thinks it's the beginning of a sentence. The culprit is right here, capitalized first letter sentences. So if you feel confident you can capitalize your own sentences, you might want to uncheck that one. Now, moving over to auto format as you type. This, okay, by default, every single box in this dialog is checked. So a lot of this is personal preference, but you'll notice that I'm unchecking a lot of things here. For example, if you go into Word and you type 1 period tab and you type something, you hit enter, what's Word do? Turns on automatic paragraph numbering and usually indents everything 1/4 inch. And people are like, why does it do that? I don't want it to do that. I'll turn on paragraph numbering when I want it. That's right here, automatic numbered lists. So if you would like it not to do that, it doesn't disable anything. It just stops doing it when you didn't ask it to do it. If I type someone's email address in a Word document, I don't expect people are going to be launching emails to that person. I don't like that it turns blue and gets underlined, so I uncheck that. Personal preference. I do like these other things. Now, this one is a very controversial one right here. Straight quotes with smart quotes. I just was talking with a law firm a week or two ago, and they're like, okay, I drafted a document and I emailed it to an opposing counsel, and they informed me that all of my quotation marks had been swapped out with capital A's and @ signs. And they're like, what? It looks fine on my computer, but they're swearing to me. They even did a screenshot and sent it to me to show me that when they open it on their end, all the quotation marks are messed up. That's because the smart quotes are the curly quotation marks. And if that's turned on, the curly quotation marks are actually symbols. They're not ASCII quotation marks. And so they are subject to the interpretation of another person's computer. And if they don't have all the same fonts and symbols on their computer that you have on yours, this is just one of the problems with Word in general, the document may not look the same on someone else's computer as it looks on yours. Now, if I'm an estate planning lawyer and all I do is print documents people sign in my office, this is completely irrelevant to me. If instead I'm trading documents electronically with someone and they're going to open up my Word files on their computer, there is a possibility that my quotation marks, if I use these smart ones, those are the curly ones, it won't look the same on their computer as it does on mine. If I uncheck this, the quotation marks don't look as cute. They're not curled in toward the quoted material or slanted if you're using a sans serif font. but they're not subject to misinterpretation. It'll always look like quotation mark no matter what. And some people, go ahead.
Ordinals, which is on your list, and I want to make sure we cover. So Barron likes his to have the superscript. However, if you are following the Blue Book, then you want to uncheck that because the superscript is actually the opposite of what is suggested by Blue Book standards.
That is a great point. So that's your checkbox right there. So all these other ones, I recommend unchecking. I don't want to go into all the details of what all these things mean, but this is turning things on that people didn't ask to be turned on, and they complain about it. Now, there's also an auto format tab. So this is auto format as I type. So it's doing it to you the second you type. This one has a lot of the similar things, a lot of similar settings in here. And you just want to be consistent. Like if you're going to use smart quotes here, then you want to use smart quotes here and vice versa. But you're going to want to check. You don't need to worry too much about math and autocorrect or actions, but auto format as you type, you want to check these settings out, this one, and then of course the autocorrect that we landed on in the first place so you can get rid of the ones you don't want. Okay, now down to advanced. There's a couple of things here. When selecting, automatically select the entire word. I don't like that, and apparently a lot of our clients don't like that because I've been asked, why can't I just select what I want? It won't let you, but if you uncheck that, you can select whatever you want. It won't always grab the word plus the space after it, that kind of a thing. Use smart paragraph selection is another one where it's going to guess whether or not you intended to select the hard return at the end of the paragraph, and I don't want it to guess for me. So I will select exactly what I want, and I don't want word thinking for me, so I uncheck that. If you use styles, I think you would want to select keep track of formatting. And we're going to have a session on styles later, but keep track of formatting allows me to know how many times a particular style is applied in the document just by right-clicking a style over here in my styles. So that's quite useful to see how many places it's used. And also I can select all of them at once. So all you have to do is check that, keep track of formatting. There's some really good ones down here. Pasting, copying and pasting. This is a constant source of irritation for Word users. As you know, you copy from one thing, you paste into another, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's what you want, and sometimes it's something completely different. Okay, so you have some choices. First of all, if you switch to, let's say, pasting from other programs, you often are doing research on the web and you're copying statutes and cases and stuff and you're pasting it into Word. What happens when you do that? It brings the formatting from your website into your Word document, and that never has a happy ending. So what you would prefer to do, if I copy something that's been formatted and has manual formatting applied to it, if I copy that and I'm going to go paste it into a new document, I want it to come in without the formatting, because then it'll pick up the formatting the document I pasted it into. You can do that manually by hitting the bottom of the paste button and choosing this little clipboard icon with the A on it, which, as you can see, maybe you can see it says keep text only. So keep text only means I don't want your formatting. I want just the text, and I'll let the formatting be applied from the document that I'm editing. Okay, so back to our setting: File, Options, Advanced. Pasting from other programs. What's the default? What nobody wants. You could switch this to keep text only. And then whenever you paste from, let's say your office uses WordPerfect in Word, you know what happens when you copy from WordPerfect into Word and vice versa. So if you were copying from WordPerfect, you don't want all the codes and all the weird stuff that comes over if you copy that. If you do keep text only, then I don't need to go to the bottom of the paste button and choose the icon. I can do a simple Control-V paste. It'll automatically remove all the formatting from the incoming text. And in 99% of the cases, that's going to give you exactly the formatting you wanted. Pasting between documents. What's the default? Keep that source formatting. Best practices, if I didn't mention, is don't bring the formatting with you. So I could switch down here and say keep text only, in which case it would automatically, on a straight paste, take off the formatting and just bring in my text. So these are
These are key settings to change. A lot of times when people complain about Word or say that they don't trust what Word is doing, it's because they're fighting against formatting when they're transferring between documents or taking from provisions in another document. Say you have a document in bank, which is really just a Word file with a bunch of provisions in it. And then you want to change how that borrowed paragraph looks. And an old school partner might say, oh, well, I don't trust Word. It doesn't do what I want it to do. You really need to retype that provision so that it doesn't take on or retain the old formatting. And the answer to that is to paste as text only, not to retype the entire provision.
Yes, yes. And sometimes you can, like, you have a paragraph that's completely messed up. You could copy it, you could select it and cut it and paste it back in, no formatting, and just eliminate all the formatting. I mean, there's a button that'll do that for you as well, but some people like to just do the copy and paste thing. Down here, use Smart Cut and Paste. If you clicked on this settings button, a lot of people don't even realize it's doing this, but if you paste in a word right next to another word, like adjust sentence and word spacing automatically, I actually uncheck that because I'm very intentional about what I'm doing in Word. And if I put a word right next to another word, I don't want it to automatically put a space in between. I'll put the space in. So you've got some settings here that you may have noticed when you copy and paste. It's making adjustments for you on the fly. And you can actually control what adjustments it's making. Whenever you paste, so if I do a paste, this little button right here, this is the paste options button. And I get all kinds of complaints about this. Like, what's a stupid little thing that shows up every time I paste? How do I make it stop doing that? I'm like, do you even know what that does? They're like, no, I've never clicked on it. Well, what it allows you to do is unring the bell. If you click this button, I can still say, no, keep text only. So if you forgot and you brought in formatting you didn't want, it gives you the opportunity to take it off, even though the text is already in your document. And then it just hangs around until, as soon as I hit another key, it goes away. So it's there temporarily to give you the option to change what happened. And if you don't like that, you can click on the button. If that really bugs you, and some people it really bugs, then you can say, uncheck, use Smart Cut and Paste, and it won't pop that little button up on you. There are a few other things that I would recommend changing. Field shading, by default, is set to when selected. So, what's a field? Like a date field. Let me show you what I'll say. I'll say when selected, and then I'll just put in a date field. So the question is that static text, or is that created by a field that's automatically going to update tomorrow? You wouldn't know unless you clicked on it and it turned gray. Okay. As a drafter of complex documents, I want to know, I don't want to click on stuff to know if it's a field. I want to be able to tell just by looking at my document, is this a field or not? So I would recommend that under File Options Advanced down here, that you say, instead of field shading, show it only when I selected it, show it always. Then you'll know instantly when you look at something, what's a field and what's not a field. Is it a cross-reference typed, or is it an automatically updating cross-reference? You would know because it was gray. They don't print gray, it's just a visual thing in Word. But your tables of contents, tables of authority, cross-references, file name, path, all that kind of stuff would show up as gray, and you would know that it wasn't just typed, it was actually something that's going to update itself. I think that's a good thing to know. I use bookmarks extensively. We're going to talk about bookmarks probably in another one of these classes, but I want to know if there's a bookmark is a hidden placeholder in a document, and you can hyperlink, you can jump to that bookmark. It's what you would think a bookmark does, right? The problem is they never print, but I want to know if there's a bookmark present. So I check this little box so I'll know. And let me just show you what that looks like. If I go insert bookmark and call it whatever, and I hit add, that little I bar that you see there, that is the visual evidence of a bookmark being present. So whole separate class on cross-references, but I use bookmarks when I'm doing automatically updating cross-references for reasons I will explain at that point. But I want to know if there's a bookmark there already, And the only way you would be able to tell is if you check that little box I just showed you that makes them visible all the time. They do not print. You'll never be able to see that when you print the document, but it's useful to know that one's there.
All right. What last couple of tips do you want to cover in our last minute or two of this course?
Okay, so in the next two items, you've got how you customize your ribbon and how you customize the quick access toolbar. We could probably do a whole class on that. I think maybe we might have one of those scheduled.
We do have one scheduled.
Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the multiple ways to get in and attack all of that. One thing I'll point out here, under customize ribbon, this is the only place this little button lives, and this is where you can create your own custom keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so file, options, customize ribbon, keyboard shortcuts, customize, and then you can make whatever key combination do whatever it is that you want. Under Trust Center and then Trust Center settings, this is where all the prophylactic settings are to protect you from yourself and viruses and other things. I just want to point out one thing here. Under privacy options, you might want to check this. Warn before I print, save, or send a file that it contains track changes or comments. It's not checked by default. And you obviously, you don't want to send something with hidden track changes in it, and this will prevent that from happening. It's just a little click-through thing that pops up. Remove, see how this one's grayed out? Remove personal information from file properties on save. I just want to say one thing about this. If you've ever done track changes on a document, and as soon as you save the document, all the names that were associated with the changes get switched over to simply the word author, and now you don't know who made what change. This is a landmine that, notice I can't check it or uncheck it, it's grayed out, because this was so dangerous and caused so many problems, they've actually disabled it on new documents. But on old documents, like if I open up an old Word file from, I'll just show you one that I know has this problem. So this is it's still a docx file, but if I were to go in here and use review and track changes and delete that, right? If I hover over that, see how it says Baron K. Henley did that? If I go File, Save As, and I save this document to my desktop, you will see that, okay, now I'm going to hover over. Look what it says. Author deleted. My name vaporized. Why did that happen? Because File, Options, Trust Center settings, and privacy, like why didn't you find that? It's so easy. That box, see in old documents, it is accessible. So if you're going to use an old file as a template for a new one that you intend to negotiate with opposing counsel using track changes, etc., you better go check this box first and make sure it's not checked, because that used to be a thing we checked all the time because it was the only way to get rid of metadata out of your files back in the day. That was in Word 2003 and prior. So this still exists today, and if you have an old Word file, it might still be checked, and if you use that as a template, it's going to wipe out all the names when you save. So you would want to make sure that was clear before you started. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, Baron. It was great having you for this lesson, and I hope that everyone knows what changes they should make to get the most out of Word from start to finish. This video was created by Ivy Gray from WordRig and Baron Henley from Affinity Consulting, who both trained as lawyers and are now Microsoft Word and Outlook enthusiasts and productivity experts. This video is part of a series. To sign up to receive tech tips and training videos via email, please visit wordrig.com/tech-tips. Let's take Word to the next level. Don't settle for default settings that don't work for you. Once you've set up Microsoft Word to work the way you want it to, do more with WordRig editing software. It goes beyond Microsoft's built-in spelling and grammar checkers by offering inline editing suggestions that help you reduce legalese and wordy writing. It uses complex, patented algorithms to find useless words, dull phrases, weak lead-ins, cliches, and high-level grammatical problems. WordRig is available for Microsoft Word and Outlook on Windows, or for Microsoft Word on Mac.
If you'd like to learn more, sign up to receive tech tips and training videos at wordrake.com/tech-tips. When you're ready to take your work to the next level, try WordRake. WordRake is clear and concise editing software that will improve your writing while respecting legally operative phrases and key legal content. It's a finely tuned collaborator that will help you satisfy clients, win more business, and do more high-value work. WordRake works in Microsoft Word and Outlook. It goes beyond Microsoft's built-in spelling and grammar checkers to help you reduce legalese and wordy writing. It uses complex, patented algorithms to find useless words, dull phrases, weak lead-ins, cliches, and high-level grammatical problems, then offers suggested edits inline. WordRake's document will look just like a smart colleague with an English degree has revised your work using track changes. In 3 simple steps, you'll have a better document or email. Try it today at wordrake.com/trial.